Welcome to the Legal Growth Podcast, where we dive into the strategies, challenges, and success stories shaping the future of law firms. I'm your host, Erin Folk, and together with Legal Growth Partners, we'll bring you in-depth conversations with top legal professionals, industry innovators, and firm leaders. Our goal is simple: share practical insights, innovative strategies, and real-world advice to help your law firm scale, adapt, and thrive. Whether you're navigating growth challenges or looking to boost your business development, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. This week, our guest is Frank Poe. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Busy week, but I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm so excited. The second you get on here, I can always usually guess 99% of the time if you've been on a podcast or not, but you can tell you've been on video. So this is going to be so great. So why don't you tell us who you are, how you got into law, and why you chose the type of law you're in?
Sure. Well, Poe Law is a creator economy law practice. I represent talent agencies, management companies, content creators, and brands in doing their deals back and forth. I got into this through a long and winding road, like most attorneys do. I originally wanted to do entertainment law, and 15 odd years ago, I was in my internships and doing like summers at talent agencies and things like that during law school. When I got out, I was a talent agent for a while, booking celebrity talent, personal appearances, DJs, that kind of thing. I left that after a year as sort of the live business was starting to change, and I went into a little bit of nonprofit, and then I was a litigator for 5 years. 2019 rolls around and the agency calls me back and said, Frank, we're now doing all influencer. We have a bunch of agents who are capturing brand budgets and spending it on this influencer talent. So I had to go in there and learn how the business works. So I applied a lot of my traditional law practice skills and former entertainment experience to this brand new industry. And since that time, the agency has made some moves and everything. I left around 2023 and formed my own practice where I continue to represent agents just like theirs. And of course, the managers and creators today to get these deals done. And it's exciting practice. I was kind of pulled into it in some ways, but I realized how much I liked it and how the world has kind of evolved away from even traditional entertainment into sort of a bigger picture now with these creators.
This is just a side note. It's not one of your questions I gave you, but because of, I look at the trends every day online, and Love Island just ended. Has that reality show space come into this space as well? Because it feels like you go from
Yeah.
zero all the way up, right?
Yeah. And so what ended up happening as I was away from that agency, the agents that were there continued to represent reality TV stars. And what they had pinpointed was that a lot of the social media followings of those reality TV stars, the Bachelor, Bachelorettes, all that kind of stuff, there was more interest from brands to reach those audiences. And so that agency, amongst others, capitalized upon that. When I returned, they had been representing the reality TV people, and through to this day, they still do. And so now it's sort of a class of influencer amongst all the others, like your smaller mommy bloggers, your large celebrity influencers, your reality TV content creators. They're all kind of mixed together in like these different tiers and different, approaches. But reality TV is very much intertwined and, in part, a key sort of pillar of the content creator world.
I imagine that LinkedIn influencer space is growing because I've all of a sudden started to get all of the offers. Do you see that growing? We met on LinkedIn. That's why I asked. Do you see that growing a little bit too?
I do. I represent a few LinkedIn influencers and content creators. People are looking for that sort of authentic connection through all different kinds of platforms. So, obviously TikTok is a little bit more fanciful than LinkedIn. But depending upon where you go, you're going to want to find a similar community or connection. I want some kind of authority telling me, okay, this is the sort of direction we should go. Here are some options and some ideas, and you can learn from those folks depending on which platform you're on. And that's even true about myself. Like I'm one way on LinkedIn versus how I am on Instagram and Threads and all that. And so you go to the place where you want to see what kind of theme you're looking for.
Right. I have I'm in the creator space on TikTok too, and it's very interesting to see the platforms, like how they work alike and how they don't, and then who you can tell is actually working smartly with somebody like you. So, all right, that will lead me to this next question, which should be so interesting. Every attorney seems to have a either first case or just something very memorable. Can you share one of your funnier or most surprising stories from early in your career?
Sure. I'll actually take you back to litigation. So this is less involved with entertainment or creator, but um, I was in a small litigation practice, and they sent me in for a court appearance. I had to argue a motion, and the other side, there was a younger lawyer. She also seemed kind of new to the game, and when we went up and we were arguing, and I looked back, and my mentor of 4 years ahead of me was standing in the back of the room, and her mentor, the adversary, was standing next to him because they were actually friends. So I felt like Pokemon, right? I felt like somebody thrown into the circle by the ball opens up and I jump out. And when all was said and done, we all went out into the hallway and just had like this big laugh of like, oh, you guys set us up, right? Like you wanted to see us perform. And but it was also telling, though. It was kind of fun, and it was like funny the way they kind of orchestrated that. But it was also telling about how even in sort of litigation, there's that camaraderie, there's that sort of respect amongst the lawyers, and that has always stuck with me, and I treat that even when I'm working today about how I work with other lawyers and treat them.
When you were a litigator, I'm in a little bit of a smaller city, and so it feels like that's very noticeable because they have to always go up against each other, right? And
yeah.
Different case, but it's always kind of the same group of people. Did you run into that as much in New York City because it has so many attorneys there?
Yes. So there's a couple of chapters to that. The first would be in like the personal injury circles. I did a lot of work out of Kings County, and so I'd run into a lot of the same attorneys, most of them who represented large insurance companies. So they would be there in court every day handling those cases because they just had a high volume. So you'd see them all the time. Yeah. Then there were instances when I was thrown randomly because of my general practice, one of the firms I was working for, they threw me into like a foreclosure defense case, and I went in there, and everyone was a comrade, but I felt like I was like the odd man out, sort of like the lone kid at the cafeteria type thing. I was looking, they were all having fun, talking about their families, and I was like, I don't know any of these people. And then now in the situation of the creator economy, there aren't that many creator economy lawyers out there. It's still a very new practice, and so across the country and even abroad, there are a handful of attorneys that I know very well that do this, and we will very often find ourselves opposite each other on certain things, or negotiating alongside each other regarding maybe a certain brand or something, because of the way the business works. So it's sort of a yes and no. Like there's, in New York, you get pockets of community, but at the same time, it is very sparse depending on the practice area. And then, now in the practice area of the creator economy, it has its own sort of community.
I imagine most of them are New York and LA, right? For creator.
No, you'd be surprised. I mean, the creator goes on everywhere. You have people out of Tennessee, you have people in Arizona, in Missouri, in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Got to be Utah, right? Because that's where the most.
Definitely a lot of Utah. I have clients in Idaho. It's expanded, and I think there's a call for more robust laws in those states where they weren't used to seeing things like entertainment. Now that we have creator in all those areas, they should be updating those laws and figuring out how to, sort out these issues.
Well, didn't Tennessee, and I know this is going a little off, but I just find this fascinating because I think you are our only anybody we've ever had in this space on the show. Tennessee just passed a law where you can't make money off kids under 18, right?
It's something like that. There's all these different sort of layers to this, where if you're under 14, you can't do certain things, and then if you're over 14, you're considered a content creator if you appear in 30%, and then you have to have a trust. So you're taking traditional entertainment sort of Coogan trust laws and applying it to content creators, but in different ways because the format's different. It's not like we're answering to a studio with a specific project. Now it's parents who have their kids in their videos, and the question is whether or not they can do that and continue to exploit those videos, and to what extent. And there's questions about First Amendment, whether or not these states are even allowed to do that. So there's a lot going on, and I'm keeping an eye on those things. Yeah. But you'll see that more happening, throughout different states, depending on their sensibility.
I always say it's the Wild West right now on social media. And one day we'll my great grandkids will look back and be like, they used to do that like we do. So,
yeah.
What has been your biggest growth success story so far?
Well, I do think that I can say now that I have worked for law firms. I worked in-house, and since 2023, I've been running my own practice. Running my own practice is, you see growth every day. You see opportunity, even when things don't work out, you see that opportunity to pivot and move up. And so just being able to run my practice for over 2 years now, and I'm seeing the inbounds coming in, you know, without even a lot of effort. Like I remember in the very beginning, it was like I had to do some outreach. I had to be live on LinkedIn and pushing and trying to reach these people. But now I'm starting to see that there is a sense of community, and people are saying, well, I heard you're the guy to see about this. And I think that is one of the best sentences I've ever been told, right? You want to be in that position.
I just listened to last night the Seth Godin. He was on Mel Robbins' podcast, and he said, you always want to be the guy to go to.
Yeah.
So you're the guy. I love that.
It's heavy as the head, right? That wears the crown, but really, like at the same time, I definitely appreciate it, and you work towards that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of it is you're building towards something, and I think that growth kind of once you get to that point, then you can look back and say, all right, it was the right move, like it's the thing to do.
I love that. What do you think your favorite non-legal skill is that's helping you grow your firm?
You have to have wit. I think that there's sort of that sort of genuine, like no BS sort of straightforwardness, but things can get a little dry. So you have to just be able to kind of laugh it off, kind of use a little bit of humor, a little bit of wit to lighten the load a little bit. You hear people say, well, it's not heart surgery. I mean, these are very serious things. Creators are small businesses that are going up against very large brands. Their exposure is heavy and huge. And we have to get the brands to respond appropriately and allow us to kind of limit the exposure to these creators. And things can get very heavy handed and annoying and everything. And there are times where you just have to kind of have a little bit of humor behind things and let people realize like we're all trying to work this out, but it really doesn't. Taking that kind of nasty attitude or taking an attitude that's way too dry and serious is not going to help. You got to kind of just be able to loosen up a little bit.
I like that wit. Well, and I imagine, especially in your type of law, you just gotta, right? Because you're dealing with all sorts of personalities.
It's not as like rote, right? It's not like I have like pre-canned like summary judgment motions and stuff like that. It's not a mill. So yeah, you have to approach this with patience. I mean, asking brands to send you creator deals, it's like if you had a room full of people and you asked everyone to draw a fish, you're going to get a lot of different drawings of fish. Yeah. So you have to be patient, and you have to be willing to absorb and contort and move things around as necessary to kind of fit where the protections should be and where the emphasis should be.
Okay, so how do you see like law firms adapting and I think shaping the future of law firms? What are you doing looking ahead? How are you positioning your firm? I imagine you have a really cool take on this because you're in a space that's you're kind of developing.
Yeah, the creator economy right now will not cater towards the larger law firms, and the reason is because the costs are very high. The money is still spread very thin, and so it's very difficult for larger law firms to justify the cost and everything to be able to take on these smaller deals and things like that. And I know because a lot of larger firms come to me and say, hey, how do we work together? How do we, you got a good thing going there, how does that make sense? And step one is I don't do hourly, unless I'm litigating. Which is a great deterrent for most clients to be like, no, I don't want to litigate now. I'd rather just pay you the flat fee to kind of get this done. But I'll do like flat fees or subscription type of things for the talent managers and the agents because I understand how much they need from me, and we can kind of price that out and work out their budget. Being solo allows me to be nimble. I mean, it allows me to be flexible and allow them to and be accommodating. And I think that's where we are in a growing industry. I think now, though, I'm starting to see traditional entertainment practices and other law firms starting to embrace more of the flat fee model and get away from hourly. I think, people were just so married to that hourly concept, maybe for outdated reasons. And even clients are now more savvy about that. And so I'm starting to see pricing models change to kind of align with how I've been doing things.
Yeah, I think everything's going to have to go to flat fee pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
I just think that's part of it. And I love that you recognize that so early because you're one of the very few attorneys I've had on here that's already recognized that.
I think it was a survival mechanism at first. I technically started my practice on the back of a layoff. I was laid off, and then I had to jump in very quickly. So I had to negotiate with some of my former, colleagues, the agents, to kind of get them on board and to get them, get the working going again. And so we negotiated. We figured out, okay, well, let's just work out a subscription thing. Pay me monthly or pay me weekly or whatever it may be. How I know how fast you can run. Let's just put a price on it and move forward. And then from doing that repeatedly, you start to develop this insight as to what's my capacity, and on a flat fee basis, what is that worth per week?
Right.
So then you can develop sort of that thing. So it really came out of survival. And then I read up on some books and things like that of accountants and people who have already argued for this model for years now. And I said, oh, well, that confirms things.
Right.
And I'm glad I'm doing the right thing now. So hopefully, more attorneys, if they want to be, especially in this space, they sort of develop that approach, because that'll enable them to have more impact.
Well, and that subscription model, you've probably seen that work so well with some of these creators, right? Well, for creators, I see like a $5.99 to see their content, their private content, that adds up. And so that's amazing that you even have that as well. So I think everybody needs to follow Frank, because he's doing some awesome things. He's on, like, I've been in this media space forever, and I have got to watch a lot of it. And I've always said, hopefully they have a good attorney. So Frank's the guy.
I'm the guy to go to.
I really appreciate you coming on here. And thank you for joining us on the Legal Growth Podcast presented by Legal Growth Partners. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, drop us a review, share it with your colleagues, because great insights are even better when shared. For more tips and tools to help grow your practice, visit legalgrowthpartners.com. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep smiling, and go follow Frank. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.